Hello again, my name is Russell Scott from scottcarvings.com, and this time I'm going to do something a little different, and that is to create bark house ornaments with a little piece of bark. Now I get a lot of my bark here, and I'm from Minnesota, and a lot of the bark around here is it's Eastern Cottonwood bark. This particular piece, I had a little problem with the window, so I thought I'll cover it with a tree. So what I did is I took a little piece of bark and carved out a tree. And the Eastern Cottonwood bark is a lot easier to carve than the Plains Cottonwood, which I also have too. Here's another one. You can choose whether to put any kind of foliage on. I'm not going to go that far with this video. It's just a matter of, well, creating the tree and then cut a little latch there and latch. A dent, how's that? And then I use a little dowel and drill between the two and glue and shove the dowel in there, and should be firm. My favorite word, should. And here's just, I'll give you a quick, this is some of the big ones. There's a nice big one there. And it's very simple shape, what I'm going to do today. And what I usually do, especially the ornaments, I don't need to make it too elaborate. In fact, putting foliage in is sort of the first really elaborate piece that I really did. And different pieces I've got are just simple like this. And if you're interested, shoot me an email. I can probably send some out to you. Probably like $1 a piece or something. This is what I'm going to do, because I think I might be able to get a chimney out of that. What's that? A little bit of crap and pucky there. They come in all kinds of shape. Here's one. Here's one here, another one, a longer one. And I think what I'm going to do with this, not in this video, just cut. So then you can have the two roofs together, because I do like to keep it sort of natural. And here's a piece here that's kind of, well, it's kind of fall. Oh, I probably ain't going to use that piece. Has some spongy stuff on it. And then here's one, like I had that big one here. I might have, you could do, or you can either have the long chimney here, or you can have your chimney and roof here and then have steps or whatever go down. So on and so forth. Let's get cracking. Now what I'd like to do is, with all my knives, I got this simple little steak knife, because when you start carving into this outer shell, it could contain sand, and we certainly don't want to ruin your good knife. So I like to have a nice sharp steak knife. Practically get it out of the garbage, and well, garage sale or something for a nickel or something like that. And then I just, any knife, and I just like to share, as long as it isn't perforated. And it's still, in fact, I got this thing so sharp, being careful here, that I can practically cut the entire gnome house ornament with it. But I like to use my good knife. So let's get the gloves on and get started. Now again, this is going to be a fast-paced video. And one thing about bark too is, even though I have an idea how it's going to go, it might go the other direction. So we might end up goofing up, and you might end up goofing up with me. Now one of the things I want to check is on the end here where it's cut. I'm going to do the profile, make sure it's just like this piece here I just had. Where's that piece at? See how that goes in? See, this would not be a good piece. So I want to make sure that when I start carving the roof, that'll be all right. All right. Thing I like to find right away is where I think the roof is going to end. And I think in this case I'll have the roof end here, and then I'll have the, let's see if this pencil mark, you know, I got to a point where I could do this without a pencil mark, but without a pencil. But what I like to do is start where I think it's going to go, and then here's the body, and then here's where we're going to have some steps. So I'm thinking probably about here, and I'll make a stop cut. Yeah, you can hear how hard this is. Just don't want to use a good knife on that. And I'm just going to come up a little bit here just to get a feel for it. Now here's where there's got a lot of stuff that's going to come off. Now carving in cottonwood bark is sort of a messy thing. And I could see this might be a problem already. But we'll see about going around it. And so you're just starting the rough here. Now I'm going to not be too concerned about that. I'm going to make some more dents in there as I finish up. Get close to it. I said, I think it's going to be, I think I'm going to use that. I want to use that. When it kind of jetties out a little bit like that, see if we were going this way, for example, I would have cut right here. This end, I could just put it anywhere. And I don't want to have it in the same spot, and it looks like it did end up in the same spot. You want it cockeyed. So like, I'll work on that later. So if you did it, let's say you did it here, you probably want to cut up here or stop cut down there. I think I could bring this up a little more. And we want to keep this part right here. And we want to keep the natural stuff as possible. And sometimes it'll chip off, and we'll see what happens. Could end up chipping off. And I still have the habit of using my thumb on my thumb. It does hurt. Now I'm going to cut kind of like a little chip cut kind of a thing here. And the front may go up a little higher, but I just want to at least get it started here as to where it's going to end. And it's going to come right about here with this roof. So let me get this clean and I'll show you what I got so far. And the thing that's interesting about this video is each piece of bark is different from another, but if you get a clean bark, or actually it doesn't have much personality in it, then you can kind of put it anywhere. And this is going to go in quite a bit, but this is what we got so far. Let me, another dent there. There we go. So if we want to start like this, or it's the same thing. If you got one that does not have a chimney, what I did on this side, you can do on the other side. But this is going to be a lot of work here. Goodbye. Let's at least get some of this out of here. Because I do want, if the roof is going to go here, I only want the chimney to be down here. So I want the chimney to be farther down than the top of the roof. Now you could leave some of the outer shell on the chimney. I'm not going to in this case. I'm going to make it a little easier here. Yeah, it's kind of on the wrong side as far as I'm right-handed. It's kind of on the wrong side. Got to take it as it comes. And then I want to try to get this to the roof. Now when I do this, see, I'm going with the grain, so that could pop right out of there. So I'm being very careful, only going so far. I'm just not going to put a lot of pressure and let it happen, but getting closer. And of course, this is bark is the kind of stuff that could, in most cases, be lighter than your basswood. And so, if you're used to whacking on that basswood hard, and then you start doing this, you might end up going all the way through and cutting yourself. This is the hardest part right here, is separating between the roof. Well, one of the hard parts. I got a little more of this junk I got to come off. Goodbye. Now the chimney has got to come in some, and like I said, I'm not going to leave any bark, any outer shell, pardon me. And I'm going to try to keep some of that for the roof. This is the base of the chimney. I don't want it to be separated from the roof. I want it to connect to the roof. So I want to be very careful I'm doing this video, because there's always a time when I'll be carving and something will just pop right off. Especially this eastern cottonwood bark. Now I got western cottonwood bark. That's what, or like a lot of people call them, Montana cottonwood. But it comes, I go hunting for it just right on the Minnesota and Dakota border there, because it's just the most eastern part where that comes, where that grows. And it goes all the way out through the Dakotas, Montana, some of it into Washington. So I'm lucky to be able to get some without going too far. But the quality is really not as good, because it's got a lot to do with where it grows and the sand and everything. So Montana cottonwood bark is still the best. And Plains cottonwood is more denser, like I said, whereas you got to catch this bark just at the right time, just as probably a year or two after the tree falls down, and then it starts to rot. Actually, the bark starts to rot off. I'm kind of a little nervous about that there. See that crack here? Well, if I were to go in, let's see if that crack will disappear. Yeah, I think it does. Good. I was afraid it was going to go all the way through. Starting to look good. And some people like to really put a lot of whimsicalness into it. I'm just going to make this kind of basic, and then you could see where you can put extra whimsy into it. There's going to be some whimsy. It's not going to be totally boring.